Now, I have breaking news. This is very important news. Elon is a f***ing loser, and he has presented it one more time for the whole nation, this time while whinging about his cars catching on fire. Now look, okay? I might be a little mean here. I might be being a little toxic, but my problem with Elon is that he just goes out on a whim to start with this immense platform of power and influence and money, and starts just throwing accusations around, throwing information around willy-nilly that has a real impact on people, that affects people's decision making. Like when he goes out and just on a whim, after dipping his toes into the Ukraine conflict for like half of a second, he's like, well, you know what? I think Crimea actually even being part of Ukraine at all, ever, was a mistake. It was Khrushchev's great mistake. Do you guys imagine that Elon took the time to go back and like, oh, let's go listen to Khrushchev's logic? Because if you do that and you go back, and even though people talk about, hey guys, the reason Crimea was given them to Ukraine was because it was a fantastic gift, and you know, it was done because of favoritism from Khrushchev, but one of the pieces of logic put forward by Khrushchev, even though the exact logic as to why it was handed over is still debated, is that he thought it was economically integral to Ukraine, that it was connected to Ukraine through the peninsula, and that it had integrated itself economically, and that it would be economically useful integrated with Ukraine. And then when the vote happened for the Soviet Union to collapse, and you know, it was collapsing and people were separating, the votes were happening, Crimea voted a majority to leave. So do we say that that vote is invalid because of Khrushchev's mistake? Do we say that Khrushchev's economic logic was like off, it was wrong? Do you think Elon sat down and considered any of this for a moment? Or do you think that in his mind it was just, okay, well, if you move the line here, then like the issue's solved? And my reason why I think the logic's so simple for him is that when he goes into issues, that's how simple the logic seems to be. I think he has a certain logic he's applied to either engineering or his field of science, and he's just repeated that logic everywhere else and thinking that it would bear him success. But when he, for example, says like, oh, he's a scientific, fantastic engineer, and so he sees very expensive jets like the F-35, and he says, this is such, and look, he's not the only one to be an idiot about the F-35 program, even though it was very expensive. But he goes out there and says, oh, the F-35, what a waste of money. And you want to know what we could have done instead? Done a big drone. We could replace the F-35 and all fighter jets for that matter with big drones. And then we would save the lives of the manpower. Now, this is something you could only say if you don't have experience with how drones function on the battlefield. And from my experience with drones, one of the big problems from, embedding with these drone teams who are trying to, hit Russians as they come in, and I've watched them do it successfully, and I've watched them fail. And let me tell you, most of the time they fail. 60 to 80% of the time they fail. Yet, even though 60 to 80% of the time they fail, they still account for like 60 to 80% of Russian vehicle casualties. That's a lot. And it shows that strategy of mass and like quantity over necessarily like focusing only on quality, but this quantity of drones, the quantity of drone pilots is able to do a lot of damage. Now, take that function and then apply it to an F-35. A drone has to go 3 to 4 miles. F-35 might have to go hundreds to thousands, potentially, with refueling missions, etc. And the stealth purpose of the F-35 is not served by the drone. And here's another problem. It's a lot harder to jam a physical human being pilot than it is a drone. I've seen a lot of drones get jammed and then just crash and then nothing happens. I have yet to, it's possible, a pilot can get shot, a pilot can pass out or something, but you can't use a drone gun to just take out a pilot. Point is, there's a lot of functionality issues where the F-35 fighter just have its own role separate from the drone. But Elon doesn't know this because he's just going in thinking he can be the savior, just like he was with that cave and all those boys that were trapped in it, where he wanted to bring the submarine, and then ended with him calling the rescue workers pedophiles with no evidence that he had to go later apologize for, or any other number of outbursts where he wanted to come in and be the hero with very little experience. And so in Ukraine, I've seen that logic applied again and again and again. Now, the thing that is terrible about that and a tragedy about that is what's happening in Ukraine is an ongoing invasion and occupation. You know, there's the ongoing human safari in Kherson. There's the ongoing shelling of Ukrainian communities. And so he continues to pile on this bullshit from the position of the richest man in the world, who is providing services for the Ukrainian armed forces through contracts with the Pentagon and the Polish government and the Ukrainian government. So he has massive government contracts, contracting out to the parties involved, and now he's decided to make himself a peacemaker with very little knowledge and experience. And while he might say that he, as of recent, would not ever cut off Starlink services, etc., XYZ, I remember what happened in Crimea, and I remember his justification for it. And I remember the reports at the time. And I remember talking to soldiers and reading reports about outages along the front line as well, along that time period when there were negotiations about monetary payments, after Elon said he would never cut those services. So I don't really know who to believe. Either way, this has left me with a little bitter taste in my mouth over the richest man in the world. And once again, I want to point to this interview and show you why he should not be involved in any commentary or any judging of the war in Ukraine whatsoever, and how his bitterness and his, I think, parasocialness over politics has led to him making not only like bad decisions in advising the president, but is completely dominating the way he approaches politics. It's all, I think it's emotions based, it's personality based, and I'm just going to show this as an example of it, to show how immediately once he's targeted or immediately once something bad happens to him, he just starts pointing the finger at all of his enemies. Look at this. Or who he perceives to be his enemies.
I think, you know, it was pretty public that I bought one of your Teslas.
Okay, let me slow this down. This is a Sean Hannity interview, by the way, so get ready for overdosing on Sean Hannity.
I don't like the way that people, and by the way, it's like the greatest car ever invented. It really is, and I'm not just saying that. It's self-driving. It's got 1,000 horsepower. It goes from 0 to 60 in 0.2 seconds. It's
2 seconds.
Most American.
2 seconds.
Okay.
2 seconds.
Zero,
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, not 0.
Yeah.
It goes in 0 to 60 in 2.0 seconds.
At that point, I think it would kill you basically if it went that fast.
It would kill. That's true.
But it's pretty fast. That's for sure. It's faster than any Ferrari, for example. Yeah.
No, I watched it beat my Z06. I'm like,
all it took was tens of billions of dollars of campaign contributions and the richest man of the world for conservatives to think electric cars aren't gay. Beautiful.
I thought that was the greatest muscle car. No, it's not. I watched the S-Plaid beat it. You're into robotics, AI. You are working with Neuralink so the blind can see and people with spinal cord injuries may one day walk. You help people in North Carolina. You help people in California when they have no communications. And I watch all of this and I have to ask, why? Why do I see people like I woke up this morning and saw that Teslas were put ablaze in one of your dealerships in Vegas? I've seen this happen all over the country. Bullets are being fired. Charging stations are put ablaze. Teslas are being put ablaze. You have experienced...
By the way, I'm sorry. This is the richest man in the world, and Sean Hannity is talking about him as if he's basically Jesus. I'm not... He helps the blind see. He helps the disabled walk. Water in the wine. Water in the wine. Look, I'm not going to say that Elon has not contributed anything to the world, but it's very obvious as to, I mean, he's trying to make it seem like Elon Musk is just this innocent little man who does nothing but just do the science. He just wants to do the science, and everybody hates him because liberals just hate science now. Science used to be the liberals' god, but all of a sudden, science is not, because science now wears a MAGA hat, I guess is the idea, right? I don't know. Either way, it's like little old Elon. He's the richest man in the world. He funneled billions upon billions of dollars into efforts to get Donald Trump elected president of the United States. And that means he attaches himself to Donald Trump's agenda. And what was Donald Trump's agenda? His agenda was rejecting the, and look, this is putting aside, we could talk about his pitch about economics and cost, which ended up, who would have thought, being bullshit. Oh, I'm going to lower the grocery prices. Oh, never mind. It's actually really hard. It's actually really difficult. We're going to end the war in 24 hours. We're going to end the war before I'm even president. Well, you know, it's now a 24-hour special peace operation. Or you can go through any of these promises that were broken. But you can just go to his basic unconstitutionality, which I think disqualifies him from the office. If you're saying, overturn the election results, I can't lose an election. If I lose an election, it's rigged. Oh my gosh, I lost. Let's try to overturn the election results. Then never accept you did anything wrong. Get away with it. And then pick other people who all think that the main issue was that it wasn't done effectively enough. Like J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, or people attempting to get people like Matt Gaetz and others. You're attaching yourself to that agenda. So, I mean, anything attached to the Trump agenda is attached to Elon. But even like separating yourself from that, like Elon personally, his businesses have terrible safety ratings. The incident reports and occurrences of instances at his factories and at his specifically SpaceX is much higher than at other comparative companies. There's also been problems when it comes to dispute with labor. There's also been problems when it comes to Elon Musk and the laying off of critical employees for places like, I would say, Twitter, for example. I think if you're going to advertise yourself as a free speech warrior and then lay off all the people who are stopping foreign governments like India from censoring speech on Twitter and then cave to those governments after advertising yourself as a free speech warrior, that's pretty hypocritical. Not even talking about all the accounts he's banned that's been critical of him, or have revealed information he didn't like, etc., which he specifically said he would not do. I mean, this pretending of Elon as some saint. He's the richest man on the planet. Why are people angry with him? We are at an age of pretty unprecedented income inequality. It is rising in this country. It is getting worse. And he's the richest man on the planet who's specifically helping people get elected to help cut his taxes as he's going into the federal government and gutting unconstitutionally, illegally, federal bureaucracies that were created by Congress, elected by the American people, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that was put in place to protect consumers and has helped 200 million Americans after the 2008 financial crisis. Like, why do they not like Elon? Fox is not a news channel. And remember, Fox is not loyal enough to Trump to always get the best Trump like back scratching. OAN is, Newsmax is. We're moving those people in. We're moving other outlets out of the White House. But Fox is supposed to be the mild one because they acknowledge every once in a while that maybe the economy's not doing too well.
Assassination, threats of assassination for you and your family. What have you done that warrants this? Because I see nothing that you have done except help our country.
Yeah, this is the best person to ask. Hey, richest man on the planet, why would people be angry at you? Please answer this question. No one can answer this to me. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Ask More Perfect Union. Ask any number of Elon's critics. Why would you go to Elon to ask why people hate Elon? Go to the people who hate Elon, which is actually the majority of Americans now.
That warrants this because I see nothing that you have done except help our country.
Yeah, I mean, it's really come as quite a shock to me that there is this level of really hatred and violence from the left. I always thought the left, or the Democrats, were supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, they're firebombing dealerships, they're firing bullets into dealerships, they're just, smashing up Teslas. Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful.
Okay, so if we're talking about the party of empathy, party of this, party of that, number one, see how this immediately became a Democrat instance? The blowing up these cars, the burning of these cars. Democrats, and this is just me being blunt, okay, and I'm saying this as a member of the Democratic Party, open, admitted blue blood. 27% of Americans like the Democratic Party. The majority of Americans do not like the Democratic Party. More Americans like the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. And guess who is included in those groups who don't like the Democratic Party? a lot of people who would be considered on the left or not considered on the left and still not like you. Your cars could be blowing up or could be being lit on fire by people who think Nancy Pelosi is an evil crook who is working with the billionaire class to rob the working man, and we need to bring about XYZ anarchist, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, immediately, this is what the Democrats do. Your cars are catching on fire when the vast majority of Americans hate you, and the vast majority of Americans hate the Democrats. It's easy to see this being done by people who are not working as the Democratic Party agents or even are members of the Democratic Party. So, look, most of the American public hate you, and you're the richest man in the country, in the world, in a nation with increasing income inequality. Like, I don't know, read the room.
I've never done anything awful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged, there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
and I think there are larger forces at work as well. I mean, I don't know who's funding it and who's coordinating it, because this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
You actually tweeted out, and I'll put it on the screen, the level.
Larger forces at work, guys. Ooh, a car caught on fire. Was it the CIA? Was it the FBI? Ooh, who are these larger? Well, it can't. It's Trump government now. What's the largest forces at work? Is it Soros? Who did it? Who's burning your cars in American dealership? Maybe it's just angry Americans. There's 330 million Americans in this country. The majority of them don't like you. Who could have done it? I don't know. The list is endless. Larger forces at work. Why couldn't it just be one person see somebody do it and they thought, oh yeah, I can do that too?
Of violence is insane. It is deeply wrong. Tesla just makes electric cars and has done nothing to deserve these evil attacks.
By the way, if you look at Tesla stock right now, can we get Tesla stock up? Can we get some Tesla stock? Hey, today it's up 4%. Congratulations, Tesla. Congratulations. But if you go for the last 6 months, Tesla's been on a pretty solid decline after the election. So after Trump got elected, it went up because everybody thought, oh my gosh, yay, Elon's going to be in government, so now we're going to make so much money over at Tesla. And then everybody saw, this is kind of garbo, and it's gone back down. It's gone back down because people don't want to buy Teslas anymore. And so now it's back to where it was, back in October, even before Trump won.
You just rescued 2 astronauts that have been in space for 286 days. They were only supposed to be there 8. You help the people in North Carolina, Tennessee, California. You have, I think, the most creative and innovative car on the market.
Thank God Elon is not there in studio, or Sean Hannity would be giving him a footsie under the table. My goodness, is there nothing? He's never done anything bad. It's only all been pure good all the way down the pipe.
You created Starlink for communications that's used by hundreds of countries. You're working on helping the blind see and all of these other things.
You're working on helping the blind see?
Is it really come down to the basic, you're aligned with President Donald Trump, who also is a friend of mine, and that you have identified well over $100 billion in waste, fraud, abuse that our federal government never should have been spending? Is that what it
Prove it.
comes down to?
Prove it, because he keeps saying he's identified this much fraud and that much fraud, and the reports come out that, oh, not even 80% of that is true. Not even close to that. Not even half of that is true. And it's happened more than on one occasion so far. So I don't really buy any of the numbers he's putting out about how much waste, fraud, and abuse he's found. And a lot of this waste, fraud, and abuse isn't even waste, fraud, and abuse. Number one, there's already an American institution that's supposed to deal with that before DOGE came in here, okay? The whole idea about DOGE is now changed to waste, fraud, and abuse. Whatever. Waste, fraud, and abuse. But 2, when you're talking about, like, cutting funding to programs that are discovering, like, kidnapped Ukrainian children, that's not waste, fraud, and abuse that's being cut. That isn't waste. That isn't waste. You're just determining that you don't care about that. That's not important to you, even though it's important to the majority of Americans, important to our government. It's important to the people who were elected in Congress. It was important to the representatives who approved that money. It's important to them. It's just not important to you. and therefore it's waste, fraud, and abuse. Just like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who would look into some of your actions, is not going to be your friend, so that it has to go.
Yeah, it turns out when you take away people's, what the money they're receiving fraudulently, they get very upset, and they basically want to kill me because I'm stopping their fraud.
To be clear, U.S. aid had its money approved by Congress, and every dollar was noted with what it had to be spent on. He did not prove that it was spending waste, fraud, and abuse, that it was on some, oh my God, here's fraud, here's, oh my God, here's this big money laundering scheme. That has not been proven by them. They just cut the money that they were approved by Congress unconstitutionally and illegally. He's the richest man on the planet, just choosing that Congress doesn't matter.
And they want to hurt Tesla because we're stopping this terrible waste and corruption in the government. And, well, I guess they're bad people. Bad people will do bad things.
Well, I know that overall, financially, in the end, yes, they can hurt you, but the people that they'll end up hurting are the people that work in your dealerships that may risk losing their job. The people that they may end up hurting are the people that work on the line and build the Teslas. They're going to.
Why do we all of a sudden care about workers? Why did we all of a sudden care about workers? We didn't care about how those tariffs were going to affect the workers that were laid off by that. We didn't care about the federal workers who are working across the country that are getting laid off. And all of a sudden we're making an appeal to, oh, well, we don't care about the federal employees that have dedicated decades of service. We think a bunch of 19 to 23, 24-year-old interns can come in here and determine these people with 30 years experience, decades of experience, can just get laid off with very little consideration into what their function is or if they're doing their job well. We're supposed to care about Tesla, though. Look, I care about all workers, but I don't buy this appeal to, oh, what about, but Elon's employees. If Elon cared about his employees, then he wouldn't have such high safety incident reports. If Elon cared about employees and workers, then they wouldn't be treating federal employees like such garbage.
Be the ones hurt. And that to me is despicable on their part, just because they might have a political difference or perceived political difference. Let me ask you this, because I think this is pretty important. The average American makes $66,000 a year. We're close to $40,000 in debt. You said to me in our last interview, we won't have a country unless we fix it now. Can you explain why this is so important that we identify all this waste?
Yes, the government the government waste and fraud is so high that it's causing a $2 trillion annual deficit. So that's 2,000.
I'm sorry. $2 trillion. $2 trillion is all waste, fraud, and abuse. Even if he identified the $100 billion, which I don't believe he did, how would you be able to identify something that you haven't identified yet as another $1.9 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse? Is the entire government waste, fraud, and abuse? That's what it is. The entire government. Why? We could just have a king and a queen and a little boy prince. It would all be so simpler.
$1,000 billion of waste and fraud that's happening. And the cost of our debt has gotten so high that just the interest payments on the debt exceed the entire military budget. And it was just growing out of control. So the country was going bankrupt. It's just, country is no different from a person. If a country overspends and doesn't spend wisely,
But also, here's the problem, is that none of this has been passed by Congress. So in 2 years, all of this work you supposedly did could be undone anyway. Or 4 years, 2 to 4 years. You have to get it through Congress.
Just like a person, a country will go bankrupt. So the reason I'm here is because I'm I'm very worried about America going bankrupt due to the corruption and waste. And if we don't do something about it, the ship of America is going to sink. And we're all on that ship. You know, and this may be a message to, you know, people out there who have, you know, are wealthy, have a lot of means, or control companies. It's like, just remember, we're all in ship America here. Your company is not going to exist if the ship of America sinks. And we should do everything we possibly can to ensure that America is strong for far into the future.
And for doing that, we're all sunk. And for doing that, you should not have your company be a victim of domestic terrorism. If I may, one last question. You know, when I interviewed you and President Trump together, one of the questions I asked both of you was, are you aware that...
Question. Storming the Capitol, pardonable. Pardonable, 100% pardonable. Stopping the certification of the boat, pardonable. If you tried to overthrow the government, get pardoned. Burn a Tesla toy, 50 years. The chair.
That there are groups that want to separate you, groups that would like to divide you, groups that would like to see you not work together. I feel it's stronger than it's ever been. Do you get the same sense?
I think they're getting desperate because, I mean, the reason we're seeing this extreme amount of hatred and violence is because we're actually succeeding in getting rid of corruption and waste. If we weren't succeeding in...
God, has there been one actual instance of corruption found? I feel like if they found an actual instance of corruption, it would be on every headline that they could possibly imagine they could put it in. But the only corruption I've seen them deal with is helping Eric Adams get away with it.
Getting rid of corruption and waste, they wouldn't care. But we are succeeding. Thanks. Without President Trump, this would be impossible. So I'd just like to say, you know, it's only possible with this president. And we've got this narrow window of opportunity with a House, Senate, and you know, a popular vote, and really we're just implementing the will of the people. And we've got this window where we're...
By the way, when we say popular vote, to be clear, the majority of Americans did not vote for Trump. You got a plurality of the vote. You got like 48 or something. So, I don't know. And when we say like, oh, we have the will of the majority, you had the will of the majority to bring grocery prices down. You didn't have the will of the majority to go kill the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and lay off all this wildlife staff and cut the funding for programs to help find the kidnapped Ukrainian children. This was not something you guys got a mandate for. You got a mandate to bring down grocery prices, which is the only thing you failed to do in your wacky agenda. I mean, actually, when I say it's the only thing you failed to do, let me be clear. It's the only thing you've failed to really approach in any matter. They've failed on the majority. They haven't gotten Greenland or Panama or any of this stuff. The tariffs haven't led to these big conquests economically that were talked about. But this is the one that they've just almost have completely avoided, just face planted on, and are just kind of saying, no, just wait. Just wait. Even though it was the big issue that got them elected. And that's why I don't think that their numbers are going to stay positive for long. They're already negative. I mean, I don't think it's going to stay in the 40s. I think it's going to be down in the 30s in the near future. I don't think it will be that long. I think in the next couple of months, it's going to be in the 30s.
We can finally take corrective action. We can fix the government, fix the country, and create a great future. And again, that's only possible because of President Trump. Well, I can't say enough good things about him.
I'm kind of supportive too. I'm pretty well known for my support of him.
Yeah.
As you might know, but well, for good reason, and for all the reasons you're saying. I want to save our country. We can't rob from our kids and grandkids, and we can't put all that debt on them. And you're right, none of us will have any business opportunities because there won't be any money, there won't be any freedom, there won't be an economy. Thank you for what you did today. I know I speak for a lot of people when I say that. And on the other side of it, you know, your company being a victim of domestic terrorism, you know, I can't say that I'm sorry.
When's the last time you heard that word used for any instance of violence done by the right on this program on Fox? Domestic terrorism and the storming of the Capitol. How do we get here? That language? Again, we're talking about the burning of a car. Domestic terrorism. Storming of the Capitol. You know, just a protest that got out of hand.
Enough. We need to get these people that are responsible for this, and you should not have to live through that. Your workers should not have to live through that. Your company and this country should not have to live through that. And I hope we get to the bottom of it.
Thank you.
And by the way, I'm excited about my S-Plaid. It's the best car I've ever driven,
it's a great car. It's what I drive actually every day. It's a great car.
Is that right?
I mean, I kind of made the car that I wanted to drive, so that's why I like it. And yeah, that's.
Well,
really,
I got mine on Hannity.com.
This is the thing I don't get. Okay, is it really that hard to think? Like, okay, let's say that I went viral on social media or something for saying something very, very anti-conservative, then my windows got smashed or something like that after I was like, hey, it would not be hard for me to put 2 and 2 together and say, okay, it's because I said this and all these people hate me. It could have been anybody in that group. Instead of the secret forces of the underground, like Azov, Soros, Democrat movement. Like, what would be the purpose from like a political angle to it? Even if Tesla goes under, he's still going to be wealthy. He's still going to have influence. Yeah, it's painful for him, but I mean, what's the risk-benefit ratio if this was some coordinated offensive by some organization? It just doesn't calculate. The math doesn't math. Okay. Did you guys see what Carrie Lake did? She flipped out, man. She went crazy. Well, I could have said that like 12 years ago, honestly. That's not... Carrie Lake went crazy. It's not breaking news.